So this afternoon, we're going to talk about the Nazarite laws and vows. So we're going to come out of Numbers chapter 6. We're going to stay here. I ain't going to bounce around. And we're going to start off in verses 1 and 2. Y'all got it? Moving too quick? Y'all got it? All right. Numbers chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If any of the people, either man or woman, take the special vow of a Nazarite, setting themselves apart to the Lord in a special way. So, like I said, we're going to talk about Nazarite laws and vows. So, God put this on my heart because you ever heard people have the conversation that the Bible is contradicting, they clash on top of each other, and this and that. And one of the most popular arguments that we'll hear is whenever they talk about long hair. So you'll hear people say, well, Jesus said a man shouldn't have long hair, right? And so people will say it's contradiction for ministers to have long hair and stuff like this. But it's certain vows that they took at certain times with different tribes and people that caused them to have long hair, that caused them not to eat a certain thing, that caused them not to drink a certain thing. And that's why I try to promote people to read for themselves, because if you just go off what a man tell you, you could be miscued, you could be turned the wrong way. So focusing on these Nazarite laws and vows, hopefully God will allow me to bring some clarity about some of the things that people say, like long hair. What it is when they took these vows, they had to set themselves apart. There's certain stuff they couldn't do, certain stuff they couldn't wear, a certain way they had to dress and stuff like that. So it's not a contradiction because these attain to a different group of people. So you had Nazarites and you had Nazarenes, and we're going to talk about that. So, based on biblical history, the Nazarites did not live in a separate or isolated community of their own. They lived in the general Israelite population. So, just so people wouldn't think that well, they was off by themselves and it was easy for them to do it, they didn't have to deal with everyday life. That's not true. The Nazarites took these vows and lived among the people just the way we do till this day. So, the difference between the Nazarite and the Nazarene. The Nazarite is a person under a special religious vow or a consecration or separation. So the definition of Nazarite itself means consecrated or separated. And they it described it more in this chapter that we're in. So we see that the Nazarite itself, the very meaning was to be separated and to be consecrated. So whenever they say separated, once again, they didn't not live amongst people. They live among common people. But the goals that they had and the certain principles they had is what separated them from the people. So it's like the scriptures say, we in the world, but we not of the world. So we're gonna have to separate ourselves in certain ways, just the way the Nazarites did. Certain stuff they couldn't do that other people was doing, like we know now. Certain things that other people do, we cannot do, like copping an attitude. Now, the best thing to do whenever we up in our feelings is if somebody tell us something, set them straight. That'll be the best feeling with our flesh to do. But dealing with God, sometimes He'll tell you what, walk away, let Him have it. I'm gonna fight the battle. uh some of the Nazarite restrictions was no drinking. They couldn't drink wine. They couldn't have grapes. They couldn't cut their hair. They couldn't come in contact with their bodies. Some examples of this is we know who Samson was, the big strong dude, Samuel, and it was John the Baptist. A Nazarene. A Nazarene is someone from the city of Nazareth. The definition is basically someone that's from the town of Nazareth. So all these people stayed up in the same town. But Nazarites is the ones who separated themselves, taking these vows to God. Nazarenes was just people who just lived there. All right, so up in the text, Jesus was called a Nazarene because he grew up in Nazareth. It tells us that in Matthew chapter 2. So we see that just because maybe Nazarenes might not have took these vows, that don't make them bad people. But people that took these Nazarite vows took a special vow. And some people didn't take the vows because they might have had enough respect to say, I know I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let my hair grow long. I know I like wine. So some people didn't take the vows out of respect. We could pull that until this day and age. Some people won't stand up here and be leaders and teachers because they know they're not going to do right. Is that an excuse? No, because if God called you to do it, you're going to have to. But I can respect somebody if they say, bro, look, I'm messed up right now, I can't do it. But I tell them I was in the same predicament. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get yourself together and do it anyway, or God will take your peace away. So Jesus was a Nazarene from Nazareth. He was not a Nazarite because he did not follow the restrictions such as drinking wine. We see this in Matthew chapter 11, verse 19. So people would say, well, how can Jesus call himself holy if he didn't follow a holy vow? He did follow a holy vow. Just because Jesus drank a little wine don't make him a drunkard, don't make him a bad person, don't mean that he was going to hell. And this is what I tell people. If you're going to have a drink, be responsible. You know how, especially if you're a grown up. Now, teenagers, I mean, you ain't supposed to be drinking no way. But if you're a grown up, you know how far you could go. You know how much it take you to get sloppy. And especially us people who married in here. If you want help, me personally, I don't drink. Y'all know why, I told y'all why. But if you with your spouse and y'all have a drink, you think God gonna send you to hell when he say the bed of marriage is undefiled and you and your spouse is out eating and y'all have something to drink. You think God gonna send y'all to hell for that? I'm just asking anybody. So all you doing is enjoying your spouse. Now, we know how far to go, but just because you have a drink with your spouse or have a drink, God not gonna send you to hell for that. Me personally, I ain't got no cutoff switch, so I can't do it. So in verse number 3, it said, they must give up wine and other alcoholic drinks. They must not use vinegar made from wine or from other alcoholic drinks. They must not drink fresh grape juice, and they must not eat grapes or raisins. So one of the things that they was in, it said that they couldn't have wine or alcoholic drinks. So setting themselves apart, for some of them, it wasn't that much. For people like me, my first time around, I'd have been like, bro, Lord, you're going to have to help me because this is going to be a fight. Because sometimes I would go to places and I felt like I couldn't have fun unless I was drinking. That's just how I thought. I'd be like, man, I can't crack jokes or nothing until I start drinking. But they set themselves apart and they swore not to do it. It said they may not use vinegar made from wine or other alcoholic drinks. Now, for those of us who know vinegar, there's two types of vinegar. You can use some vinegar to make wine, or you can use vinegar for other things. Me, myself, I think recently discovered, but I remember my grandmas used to do it. Vinegar and baking soda will clean anything. That vinegar that's so strong it could kill the smell of anything. Man, we put that up in a bathtub and that thing looked brand new. So I mean, they took the oath not to mess with that vinegar. Then they say they must not drink fresh grape juice and they must not eat grapes or raisins. Now for me, that'll be a problem because I like to eat pretty much everything. And if we got grapes in our icebox, they gonna get the business from me. So that would have been another problem I had whenever you know how them up in the store they sell them big old green ones that's this big around and all of them sweet. That would have been an issue for me too. I can admit it. But the people could not drink the wine. They couldn't have vinegar made with it, and they couldn't drink grapes or raisins. Now, people would say, well, according to, I forgot where it was at, but they were saying up in the Old Testament, there's certain stuff that you could eat and couldn't eat. Well, it's a contradiction because it's a fruit, and it's good for you, and it's this and that. Once again, this was a Nazarite vow that they took. It didn't pertain to everybody. It was a group of people in Nazareth who took a Nazarite vow that don't make them wrong and that don't make this a contradiction. That's just like here. If we say, you know what, we gonna fast for however long, and we Christians, right? That don't mean because nobody else outside of here, other Christians not fasting, that don't mean that they not Christians. We just took the vow for us to fast for however long, but everybody is still children of God. You see what I'm saying? In verse number 4, as long as they are bound by the Nazarite vow, they are not allowed to eat or drink anything that comes from a grapevine, not even the grape seeds or skin. So We see that they took the vow and they can't eat the grape, nothing from the grapevine, not even the seeds, not even the skins. Verse number 5. They must never cut their hair throughout the time of their vow, for they are holy and set apart to the Lord. Until the time of their vow has been fulfilled, they must let their hair grow long. So people would say that this is a problem because they had a time where, once again, Jesus up in the New Testament said a man shouldn't have long hair. Once again, this is where we need to sit down and read and really digest the scriptures and pay attention to it. This is why I say get close to the scriptures, and this is how interpretation comes. People don't read the whole thing. They take bits and pieces and they pick the parts that they like. So seeing this, we know once again the Nazarites took this vow because they separated themselves. This had nothing to do with what Jesus was talking about. Jesus is not talking about these group of people. These are Nazarites who took this vow. So yes, they could let their hair grow long, but their hair didn't grow the whole time. Once their vow was over with, they could cut their hair and they could go back to doing it. So just because they set themselves apart at this point in time, and these group of people don't make this a contradiction. In verse number 6, they must not go near a dead body during the entire period of their vow to the Lord. So the problem with this is, well, let me go to verse 7. Even if the dead person is their own father, mother, brother, or sister, they must not defile themselves, for the hair on their head is the symbol of their separation from God. So they say they can't go near a dead body because this is a part of their vow. If they go near a dead body, they're going to be unclean. So imagine you on if you want to set yourself apart for 2 years and you're on the last day and it's your full 2 years tomorrow and your person is being a person close to you died and they bury him up in the ground today and you can't be around them or you can't carry the body or you can't do something like that. So you gonna keep your vow or you gonna break the vow. Now some people broke it and it had consequences to that. But think about how dedicated you gotta be to keep this vow. Number one, you can't cut your hair. I know people that cut their hair all the time. People like trimming themselves up and keeping it low and doing this with it. So it said the hair was a symbol of separation to God. So this should be heavy on your heart because if you took that vow, your hair represents your separation from the people. It don't make him a bad person. It don't mean that Jesus lied because we know he didn't. But when they took this vow, that was a part of it. So if you touch a dead body, that made you unclean. So how many of us could imagine when our loved ones dying and we can't touch them because we didn't took a vow? Imagine us being on that vow for 3 years and our hair on our back. For those of us who could grow hair there for 3 years, and you got a person who died. Now you got to make a choice. You either gonna go and touch this person and told them, or you gonna stick to your vow. That's a hard situation to be in. Number 8, this requirement applies as long as they are set apart to the Lord. So they had to do this, all this, as long as they were set apart. Number 9, if someone falls dead beside them, the hair they have dedicated will be defiled. They must wait for 7 days and then shave their heads, then they will be cleansed from their defilement. So if something happened and you come in contact with a dead body, it don't matter how long you've been doing it. Your hair could be down your back or to your ankles. You got to cut it and start over. Now this will regulate us up in everyday life. Whenever God got us doing something, we may be then built up so much faith or went so far ahead, but anytime we do something willingly and we know it's in, guess what? He might start you all the way over. And I don't know if y'all know what it's like to start over, but sometimes that's the most uncomfortable thing ever. You mean to tell me I got to go through all this again? You got to build me up again? And that's what God's telling you. You're going to stick to the vow. You're going to stick to what I told you to stick to, or you're going to keep starting over and over again. Those of us who play games like Sega and all that, trust me, the worst thing up in the world was whenever you had to start over. So whenever we first got games, it was like Sega, Nintendo, and stuff like that. We had Mario and Sonic. You get to a certain point, at that point in time, you couldn't save the game. So wherever you was, let's say the electricity cut off, or somebody kicked it, or the game just tripped and freeze up and cut off. You had to start all the way over again. So you might have been playing 2 or 3 hours, sweating, half of the day went by, and guess what? The game mess up. You got to start all the way over again. Then later on, they came out with a way that you could save the game and you could keep moving forward. Sometimes God don't work like that. Sometimes God will knock you down and make you start all the way over again. And sometimes we don't mean to make mistakes. But whenever you know better, we're going to have to step up. We're going to have to do better. In verse number 10, on the 8th day, they must bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tabernacle. So we see that you have to cut your hair and do the thing for 7 days, but you also have to bring a sacrifice. So this will walk us up into something else. On top of having these vows, on top of separating yourself, on top of being God's child, what kind of sacrifice are you bringing? Are you bringing a sacrifice that God telling you to bring, or are you bringing a sacrifice that you want to bring? See, this is why God didn't accept Cain's sacrifice. It's not that he couldn't have accepted it, but he didn't give him the sacrifice that God wanted. He accepted Abel one because Abel gave him his best. Cain just brought him anything. And God told him that if you would have gave me your best, I would have accepted it. That's all you had to do. How many times do we go to God and want God to give us his all the way up here, and we give God all the way down here? This is why whenever we in this walk of faith, it ain't just coming in here. Our life got to reflect it. That's giving God all. I'd rather you come in here, sit down and be quiet and stare at me like how y'all doing now, and go outside and live your life righteous and tell people about Christ, than stand in here and shout amen at everything I say and go out there and live like a demon from hell. We're going to have to come up, right? We're going to have to give God our best sacrifice. So whenever we separate ourselves, we don't have to keep our hair long. We don't have to refrain from grapes and stuff like that. But it's certain stuff that we have to refrain from. It's a certain way we have to carry ourselves. You got to carry yourself with respect whenever you're a child of God. You have to walk a certain way. You got to talk a certain way. I heard this a long time ago. If you want respect, you got to earn respect. And I found that out playing sports and being around men. People will give you a certain amount of respect, but a lot of that respect you're going to have to earn. Like, I worked a job with a lot of older men doing hard labor, like swinging mall hammers and stuff like that. They gave me a lot of respect because, unlike a lot of people my age, I was able to swing a mall hammer. I said, well, my dad had me working concrete when I was 7. He'll build catch basins. For y'all who don't know what that is, the center block that got the 2 holes in it. You take 2 of them and put on the left, 2 and put on the right, 2 put in the front, 2 put in the back, and stack them up 2 or 3 layers high, right? You get several bags of concrete, mix them up in a wheelbarrow with a shovel, and roll them to the spot. Guess who was toting the center blocks? Guess who was mixing the concrete? So the way he'll set it up, he'll be to have the hole dug out already. He parked the truck right here. The hose pipe, this how you know you're back in the 90s. The hose pipe all the way out there where them garbage cans at, across 3 people's yards. I got to take the concrete bag, put it inside the wheelbarrow, roll it across the yard with the shovel. Get the water, bust the bag up, put the bag on my shoulder, mix the concrete up, tote it back. And you better not spill concrete up in nobody's yard because we ain't got money to fix none of their landscaping. So at first, I'm like, man, he got me doing all this. But over time, I got to see older men who saw me doing that ended up respecting me because they like, little man, work hard. Up in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm doing this for food and somewhere to sleep. See, kids now want to get paid. It was different for us. We was working for room and board. I wish you would ask one of them people born up in the 60s or 70s to pay you to work. Man, you crazy. But what you had to do, and even with my grandpas, they'll love you, but you had to earn their respect. You had to show them that you weren't soft. You had to show them, I know how to work a shovel, I could work a maul hammer, I could drive, I ain't scared to shoot a gun. There's certain stuff you had to do to gain respect. And it's a certain way as young men we had to carry ourselves to get approval of older men and to grow up to be a man. It's the same thing with God. Once you get closer into God and you go deeper into God, you got to keep carrying yourself and keep walking with respect. And God going to hold you to a higher standard the closer you get to him. Case in point, everybody know on my job right now, I'm a minister. It's like 3 or 4 of us out there. You realize as toe up as I am, I'm the only one that they respect. Think about that. I'm the only one that they respect out of four of us. And I'm not bragging. It tripped me out too. I'm like, well, what's the difference between me and them? And one day somebody told me, he said, whenever we sitting out here cussing and talking, you don't do that. Whenever we sitting out here complaining, you don't do that. Whenever it's time to work, you work. That was the only thing that set us apart, and it's simple. And I don't walk around like I'm higher and mightier than people. So we got one of them out there. He be trying to trick people up into doing all the work, and nobody like him for that. Everybody say he lazy. They say he's slow. But if I'm gonna be a child of God, I have to carry myself a certain way. I can't get out there and cuss with people. I can't gossip with people. I gotta walk by the vows that God holding me by. I have to be a hard worker. I can't be lazy. And you wouldn't and you would think that people don't watch you whenever God set you apart. People watch me more than what I care to think. And the craziest thing is certain people always want to talk to me. They come to me for counseling and telling me their business. And I'm like, why are you talking to me? It's 105 degrees. I'm trying to sleep on my lunch. But God will have me to help these people. And I tell them all the time, I said, bro, I can't take credit for anything. It's only God and the Holy Spirit that allow me to do this. So, is a guy that had got in some trouble on our job. He had got suspended a couple of days. I'm the first one he called. He ain't called nobody else. He called and talked to me. And the only thing I tell him was, man, look, cover your tracks. Keep yourself out of trouble. Don't give him a reason to mess with you. And me and him, I think I'm about a year older than him. And he respect me because of how I carry myself. The only thing I do is I wake up in the morning and tell God to guide me. It's nothing I'm doing on my own. So whenever God set us apart, it's a certain standard that God gonna hold us to. And the closer we get to God, the more the standard gonna get stricter. I want us to keep in our mind whenever you feeling like it's too much and you won't break and life too much and you want to strangle somebody or you want to run somebody over with your car or you want to strangle somebody, think about this. In your spare time, you know how we talk about Moses and stuff like that in the scriptures, if you don't know no better, it could seem like Moses did all that over like 2 weeks. It took Moses a long time to get them people free. It was a long time. Moses had a lot of headaches. Moses had a lot of stress. It took him a long time. Then he got up in the wilderness, and the people they didn't have no lack. God was feeding them and showed them favor, and they were still complaining. Matter of fact, next time I preach, I'm gonna talk about how the people, how 250 people had rose up against Moses, and God was finna kill them. But Moses got Aaron to hold the atonement and keep death off him. So whenever you in these situations with God, God will hold you to a higher standard. And sometimes God will allow you to get tested. Sometimes God let us get tested, but sometimes we bring stuff on ourselves. So just remember, when you walking with God, whenever we take this vow to serve God, God hid, but the enemy hid too. That's why sometimes whenever you pray to God and say, God, thank you for this day, it seems like something rise up. You say, God, thank you for my spouse making progress, and it seems like your spouse going crazy. When you say, God, thank me for my kids, and all of a sudden your kids ain't got no sense. I know because I was one of them kids didn't have none. But the enemy hear you too. But that don't mean God not working. God's still working on your behalf. So make sure you giving your best sacrifice. And number 11, the priest will offer one of the birds for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will purify them from the guilt they incurred through contact with the dead body. Then they must reaffirm their commitment and let their hair begin to grow. So let's say you do make a mistake. Let's say you do sin. Give God your best sacrifice. And the only thing I can tell you is ask God to take it away from you. And I know we've heard this a lot of times, but I'm not talking about the stuff that we will stand up here and tell people. I'm talking about the stuff that nobody know but you and God. You tell God to take that away from you. And you're going to find out the same thing that you're ashamed of, God going to use that to help you to help other people. What I mean by that is some of y'all sit out there and think that y'all not important. Sometimes God be telling y'all to do stuff. But how many of y'all, God done told y'all to do something, not just in here, but out there, and y'all didn't do it? Let me tell y'all something. You do that and you selfish. You don't know how many lives God could have used you to save or who you could have stopped from doing something. Stop thinking that because God tell you to do something, it don't mean nothing. You like these Nazarites. You set apart. You took the vow to follow God. Do what God told you to do. Stop holding back because God gave you something because you don't think it sound right. Stop holding back if God told you to do something because you don't think it makes sense. Stop holding back because you don't think you educated enough or you don't have enough money. If God tell y'all to do something, do it. We got to stop being selfish as God's children. So after you ask God to take it from you and you reaffirm, the best thing I can tell you is don't make the same mistakes twice. Because think about this. As a parent, if you correct your child the first time, right, for doing something, and you already know that they know better, you say, all right, I'll let them slide. The second time, you mad. So you probably will put your hands on them. That third time, they knew better the first time they did it. You let them slide. The second time, they did it again. The third time, you feel like they playing with you. So it might not be a favorable end. Somebody might end up in ICU and you might end up in handcuffs. So the same way you feel that way, imagine how we make God feel. Now think about all the stuff y'all did to raise y'all kids and doing for y'all grandkids. Think about how God feel whenever we do that, all the stuff that he gave up for us. He didn't have to leave heaven and come down here and die for us, but he did. He didn't have to leave perfection and a humble Jesus, lower than angels, to come down here and die for a bunch of raggedy dirt like us, but he did. So whenever we take this vow and we walk closer with Christ and we get closer to God, remember everything God done for you. Remember whenever God tell you to do something, you do it. He paid a special price for you, man. You set apart. Don't let nobody make you feel different. The enemy got a way of making you feel like you ain't nothing. That's because he know he gonna be defeated. Let me tell you something. You ever heard the saying, misery love company? You know why he try to make y'all feel that way or make y'all turn away from God? Because he know he going to hell. He know his time short. He want people to come to hell with him. Because he know hell was made for him. Hell wasn't made for none of us. But if we choose to go there, we can't blame nobody but ourselves. So the next time the enemy play with your mind, think about that. The only reason why he playing with you because he want company in hell. He want to see you suffer and burn with him than live eternally with our Father. Verse 12. The days of their vow that they were completed before the defilement no longer count. They must rededicate themselves to the Lord as a Nazarite for the full term of their vow, and each must bring a 1-year-old male lamb for guilt. So we kind of talked about this. Rededicate yourself and start over. Forget about yesterday. And I use this principle all the time. I told this to both of my sons because sometimes people like the words I give and they come and say, Daddy, you remember this and you remember that? And at first, Ro thought I was lying. Ro would be like, you said this and that. I don't remember. Because last week's lesson, to me, is last week's lesson. I can't be living off everybody shouting last week. I got to come with something this week. God got to prep me for this week. God got to give me more. I got to lean on him for this week. I can't keep repeating the same thing I said last week trying to get y'all to shout. That's not how this works. God's children need to be taught, just like me. So rededicate yourself and give God your best offering. So if y'all didn't get nothing else out of what I said, the Nazarites took a vow, but we took one also. We took one to serve God, live with God, walk with God no matter what. We said we're going to take up our cross and follow him. We said that we're going to set ourselves apart because God called us to be apart. So number one, if God tell you to do something, don't be selfish. Do it. Number two, just because you make a mistake, it's never too late to start over. But try not to make the same mistake twice. All right? And the next part, being set apart, you're going to be different. People might call you weird or say you this and you that. Let them talk. But sooner or later, they're going to walk up to you and say, whatever that is inside of you, I want it. That's all I got. So